Dear friends, hello everyone. Today we prepare a natural cake, delicate on the outside and vibrant inside, with lime and mint, raspberries, a spicy note of pink pepper, and crunchy chocolate crumbs. Let's get cooking. For the sponge cake, we need eggs, separated into egg whites and yolks, sifted flour mixed with baking powder, sugar, and most importantly, the aromatic and flavorful component. This comes from fresh mint and spinach leaves without stems or twigs, thoroughly washed and dried of excess moisture. We also need lime juice, lime zest grated finely, and odorless sunflower oil. Spinach will give the sponge cake a naturally beautiful color. To preserve its vibrant, rich hue in the batter, we will blanch it in boiling water for about 10 seconds and then immediately transfer it to cold or icy water. After that, we thoroughly squeeze the leaves to remove as much moisture as possible. As a result, a large bunch will reduce to a small handful of leaves. Their weight and volume will decrease significantly, and in such a quantity, the spinach will not affect the flavor of the sponge cake. Next, place the mint leaves, blanched spinach, lime zest, lime juice, and vegetable oil into the blender jar and blend everything until you achieve a perfectly homogeneous, vibrant, aromatic mass. The degree of smoothness will depend on the power of your blender. The result will be a rich green puree. Next, we whip egg whites slowly until light foam appears. Without pausing, gradually add half the sugar while the other half goes to the yolks. Once all the sugar has been added, continue beating until you achieve a light and airy consistency. The meringue will lighten in color and increase in volume, but it will not reach stiff peaks. The trace on the surface will be soft and pliable. Add the remaining half of the sugar to the yolks and beat on high speed until you achieve a light, creamy consistency. Now, add our fragrant green mixture to the whipped egg yolks and mix thoroughly with a mixer until smooth. The mixture will have a beautiful, pleasant green color. Now add the meringue and gently fold it in with a spatula, moving from the bottom upward. It is important not to mix it for too long to preserve all the airiness. The mixtures combine easily. Now add the flour. We sift it through a sieve in 2 stages, carefully folding it with a spatula after each pass. We work gently and quickly to preserve the lightness of the batter. The result is a light, homogeneous, and fragrant batter with a beautiful natural green tint. Immediately transfer the batter into a prepared pan and place it in a preheated oven at 170 degrees Celsius. Bake for about 35 to 40 minutes, adjusting for your oven's characteristics. Test for doneness by inserting a wooden skewer into the center of the sponge cake. It should come out dry and clean. Wrap the finished sponge cake in plastic wrap and refrigerate until completely cooled. Meanwhile, prepare the raspberry filling. For the raspberry filling, we'll need raspberry puree, corn starch, sugar, gelatin pre-soaked in cold water, and I'll also add pink peppercorns. Pink pepper is not hot but aromatic, slightly sweet, with subtle floral and citrus notes. It will give the filling a light spiciness and make the cake's flavor more interesting and multidimensional. Before using, crush the pepper in a mortar to release its aroma better. Mix the corn starch with the sugar. Pour the raspberry puree into a saucepan, add the sugar and corn starch mixture, and whisk thoroughly to avoid lumps. Place the saucepan on the stove and, stirring constantly, bring it to a boil. After it starts boiling, let it simmer for another 1 to 2 minutes. You will see the mixture begin to thicken. We remove it from the heat and immediately add the bloom gelatin and crushed pink pepper to the hot mixture. Whisk thoroughly until the gelatin is completely dissolved. Immediately divide the filling into the half-sphere molds. I will specify their diameter in the recipe. You can also use regular pastry rings for the filling, but the cut will look more striking this way. Let the filling cool down a bit and stabilize at room temperature. Then place it in the freezer until completely frozen. Once the sponge cake has completely cooled, cut it into layers. First, trim off the top crust in a thin layer. And look at the stunning color of the sponge cake, completely natural, without dyes. The aroma is simply delightful, and the texture is light, delicate, slightly moist, and incredibly delicious. And to further enhance and highlight the mint and lime flavors in the cake, we will prepare a fragrant soaking syrup. In a saucepan, combine water, sugar, and lime juice. Bring it to a boil and ensure the sugar is completely dissolved. Then remove it from the heat. Add lime zest and fresh mint leaves. Cover with plastic wrap and let it steep for about 20 minutes. After that, strain the syrup. The aromatic soaking syrup is ready. To assemble the cake, prepare the mold in advance. You will need a removable ring, acetate tape to line the inside of the ring, and a base. Also, remove the frozen filling from the mold ahead of time. Place it on the base and immediately return it to the freezer so you won't be distracted by this process during assembly. Now we move on to preparing the cream mousse and assembling the cake. For the cream mousse, we will need very well chilled heavy cream with 33% fat, cream cheese, raspberry puree, sugar, gelatin soaked in cold water, and dark chocolate crumbs. And as always, we begin by whipping the cream. We need semi-whipped cream, whose consistency is often compared to slightly melted ice cream. To achieve this, we whip the chilled cream until it significantly increases in volume, fluffiness, and airiness. It should begin to thicken without forming peaks. The trace on the surface of the semi-whipped cream will quickly disappear. The prepared cream is immediately refrigerated until needed. The cream cheese should be at room temperature. Mix it with a mixer until it has a smooth, creamy texture, but do not whip it. As a result, it becomes smooth and pliable, ready for further use. Place the raspberry puree and sugar in a saucepan and heat until the sugar is completely dissolved and the puree is hot, but do not bring it to a boil. Remove from the heat, add the bloomed gelatin, and stir thoroughly until it is completely dissolved. Then pour the raspberry mixture into the cream cheese and mix with an electric mixer until smooth. Remember to scrape the mixture from the bottom and sides of the bowl with a spatula to ensure everything is well combined. The result is a beautiful, homogeneous mixture. Ensure the cheese raspberry mix is at 28 degrees so it doesn't thicken the cream too quickly. Gently stir the semi-whipped cream to restore its texture. Then, while continuously stirring with a spatula, slowly drizzle in the cheese raspberry mixture. Carefully fold everything until fully combined. Next, add chocolate crumbs and gently distribute them with minimal stirring to maintain a slight crunch. Immediately proceed to assembling the cake. From the total amount of mousse, I set aside a small portion, literally a few tablespoons, to later cover the top sponge cake. I divided the remaining mousse into equal parts on a scale so that the layers in the cross-section are neat and uniform. Each sponge cake layer is soaked with our aromatic syrup. Then, we spread a portion of the mousse, distribute it evenly, and embed the filling into it. I also divided the filling in advance into equal parts for the two layers. The filling is then covered with the second portion of mousse, spread over the entire surface and filling all gaps. Next, we cover with the following sponge cake layer and repeat the process. The last sponge cake layer is covered with the reserved portion of mousse. If it has thickened, we gently restore its texture by simply stirring with a spatula. The finished cake is placed in the refrigerator for stabilization for 6 to 8 hours. Simultaneously, we prepare the ganache mixture that will be used for decoration. For the ganache, we need 33% heavy cream, raspberry puree, white chocolate, butter, and gelatin soaked in cold water. In a small saucepan, combine the raspberry puree and swollen gelatin and heat to 60 degrees Celsius until fully dissolved. Pour this hot mixture over the chocolate melted in the microwave in short bursts, then blend continuously with an immersion blender until smooth. Since the quantities are small, using the blender is not very convenient, so you can also mix it with a spatula. Then, add the room temperature butter and mix thoroughly again. Without turning off the blender, pour in the cream and blend until smooth. Pour the finished ganache in a thin layer into a flat container, cover with plastic wrap so that it is in contact with the surface, and place it in the refrigerator with the cake for stabilization for 6 to 8 hours. After stabilization, the ganache became firm with a texture like this. Transfer it to a convenient container and beat it with a mixer until it reaches a creamy consistency. It will become stable and airy. As soon as the ganache has the desired consistency, stop whipping immediately to avoid separation. Transfer the finished ganache to a piping bag fitted with a fluted tip for decoration. Remove the stabilized cake and immediately decorate it with the whipped ganache. If desired, you can of course cover the cake with your favorite frosting for leveling. I will leave links to various frosting recipes in the video description. Look at how the cake turned out. Delicate and understated on the outside, bright and expressive on the inside. All the colors are completely natural and free from dyes. The cake harmoniously combines several textures and flavors. The fragrant duo of lime and mint gives the cake a refreshing taste. The raspberries add a vivid tang and rich berry flavor. The chocolate crumb provides a pleasant crunchy texture. Finally, a subtle spicy aftertaste of pink pepper unfolds, making the flavor even deeper and more interesting. Friends, I really loved how my cake turned out. I hope you will be inspired to make it, try it, and share your impressions. That's all from me. As always, thank you all for your attention. See you in new videos.
Bye-bye.